There's just so much about peeking, but let's go over the basics. Okay, so I think the most important peek that most of you guys are probably familiar with is just pre-aiming an angle. So, you know, you could help by peeking on the map, and then you just boom, right? We can call this dedicated peeking. We can steal this terminology from Silence. Right, so this dedicated peeking is probably going to be your bread and butter when you like clear around the map. And the most important thing about this peek, I think, if you're like walking around the map, is that you do it silent. Whoops, I accidentally shot. So you can do this peek silent. You see that I'm making no noise. You just pre-aim peek, right? This is the most important. Just pre-aim peek, pre-aim peek. Really easy. Just walk up to an angle, aim through the wall, and then just do your thing. Walk through the entire map. And maybe the best way to practice this is just going ascent on B main and just clearing all these angles, and then walking up to this and then doing it all silent. If you can do this all silent and pre-aiming all of them, clearing all the off angles, this is probably a good starting point. You see how I'm just shift peeking out in this angle? That's really bad. You don't ever want to shift peek any angles unless you're just walking up to an angle. Like right now I'm just walking up to the angle. That's fine, and then you can get close and peek. So an example of this is in B main, like I just showed you guys. Like I peeked all of these angles, you know, cleared all the off angles. But right here, I'm not gonna just walk up here and then just like peek this every single time. Like that takes way too much time. So after I clear all these off angles, boop, clear it all, I tend to just shift walk up here, and then I get close to the angle, and then I start peeking again, right? So that's why you like use your shift walk, but you don't ever want to shift peek. Like if you just walk up on this angle and shift peek all of this, you're just gonna die. Even if you shift peek this, like you could still die. So try to avoid shift peeking, especially on angles further away from you, right? Like if you're shift peeking this angle here, you're just gonna die for sure. So the further away the angle is from you, like this cat angle that we're talking about here, he's really far away from the angle, right? If he plays it close wall, then it might be like similar, but if he plays it like in the middle here, you have to take your angle really strong here as offense. So that could just mean jump peeking, so you avoid the gun duel, right? Jump peeking is really important to just bait out a first shot or like a disadvantageous fight early round. So this is true on like every single starting position on Ascent. If you don't feel like you can pre-aim properly, or like you want to go quick, right, because the off angle is here, technically as a jet or a chamber, they could be standing here, they could be standing here, right? So that's really hard to kill when you're pre-aiming here, because you might pre-aim the door, but then when you swing here, he could be standing here and kill you. So just to speed it up, you could just jump peek, boom. I do this basically every single time I round start. Like I just jump peek. If I'm lazy, I just jump peek and then I go. Now the jump peek clears all the off angles, and then I just have to hold the door. I can walk up, I can peek out a little bit more, whatever. Do those dedicated peeks we talked about. So that's how you tie in jump peeking. If you don't feel confident in pre-aiming all the off angles, or if it takes too much time, just jump peek it. Easy clap. Okay, now we can get into wide swinging and when to use it. So, or how to do it, I guess. So wide swinging, what is that? That's basically when you just stick your face into a wall and go really wide. Boom. Okay, so wide swinging, you just basically go really close to the wall and go extra wide, right? So if I'm trying to fight this guy Cat and I'm close wall here, I'm not gonna stop on a dime. I'm not gonna like just peek it like this, right? Because I'm exposing my shoulder right now. You guys see that? They can see me right now. This guy Cat can see my arm. So if I just peek out like this, he's just gonna click my head. Easy clap. But if I just jiggle like this, bait my shoulder a couple times, and then go really wide, it should be a pretty easy kill. They might just miss you because you're moving so fast, right? So when you go for a wide swing, you might want to throw a couple jiggles out and then just go really wide. Couple jiggles, go really wide. And honestly, wide swings work a little bit better the closer the angle is. So those two examples were pretty long range, but like a better example of like a wide swing jingle might be here, right? Like this is not that far, and then you can go for the wide swing here. Of course, you got to worry about the off angles, whatever, but typically wide swing I think works a little bit better on close angles. Crouch peeking and wide swinging go hand in hand, I think, in the case that like the examples you would do them. If I know that there's a guy right here, I might jiggle this and then wide swing. That could work really well. But if I want, I could just crouch peek this too, right? And this can be really good because crouching on close corners is very strong if you know exactly where they are. Like if you can isolate the angle to a narrow point. So right now, let's say I know for sure that this guy's on the ramp here, right? Then the crouch peek here could be very strong because it's going to throw off his pre-aim. and I know I can like isolate the fight here and get out. Whereas like if I know he's on the ramp here and then I just go for the wide swing, I might run past the angle and not actually get the kill. He might not kill me, right? Because I'm moving so fast, but I might not get the kill. So it's the crouch peek is a little bit more of a committed fight, but it throws off the headshot angle, and it could be really good if you don't have time to wide swing. So the crouch peek is very good. It's very underrated. A lot of people don't know how to do this, to be honest. So let's say we know there's a guy in this corner and not this ramp. And what would you guys peek here, right? If I know this guy's in the corner for sure, then I wouldn't actually go for a wide swing or a crouch peek, right? Because technically he has angle advantage because he's further away from the angle, right? You see that? So I might start the fight by going halfway through, and I've made a video on this too. But you want to start your angle most of the time by just, if there's a wall in front of you and behind you, you don't really want to commit to the wide swing close peek or the crouch peek, and you don't want to commit to the back wall dedicated peek too much because now you're further away from cover. You see that? So a nice middle ground that you guys can try to implement with peeking is just standing in the center of two walls. So right now I'll just go for like a normal dedicated peek, right? But I kind of get the advantage of the dedicated peek and the wide swing a little bit because I have the cover. So I could probably get a shot and hide. Whereas like if I'm on the back wall and get the shot, it's a little bit less likely that I can hide behind cover in time. And if I go with the wide swing here, he has the advantage on the angle, right? So going in the medium, you can kind of play both, right? So like, let's say I go for the dedicated peek here in the middle and I don't get the kill. Now I can mix up my peek by going wide. You see that? You see, I'm mixing up the depth of my angle. I feel like a lot of people don't do this. Start in the middle, take the fight, go close, and then go wide. Now that this guy is going to be pre-aiming like this, right? You're aiming in the middle, he's going to go close, and then you just suddenly go wide, and now he has to readjust so far. So that's something that you guys can try to do is, I guess, play with the angle a little bit more with the depth. I feel like people don't actually do that enough. Generally, the most common peeks that you do with an op are just dedicated peeks, right? So like, let's say I'm picking cat here, I'll just like angle out and then kind of do them like that. So if let's say like I'm just starting the round, I have an op, I'll probably just dedicate peek this, maybe get some util and then kind of just like go through. But the problem with ops is that it's not very mobile, right? You kind of see like there's like a little drag with my scope, with my movement, I guess, until I'm accurate again. So it's very easy to make your shot go too wide when you're opping. So you'll see sometimes where like operators will just jump peek something to get rid of that mobility disadvantage. So that's a really good one you can do too, just jump peeking. You can run up on the angle like this and then counter strafe out or something like that. That's a very powerful one. But you can't do that with every single angle, right? Because if I were to jump peek this, I'm just in the open. That's not good. Unless you have jet dash active, then you know you can go in the open and then go for a flick and dash out. But like that's like a low chance shot. So if you're gonna go for a jump peek, try to keep the angle narrow, right? You see this? It's a one fight. You don't want to expose to too many angles if you go for a jump peek. So it's probably just simpler to like go out like this. The best kind of peek for a mid range is kind of just a dedicated peek, I think. Like you just pre-aim it and try to get the click. But obviously jump picking is just the safest for mid range and long range because there's so many variations on the off angle. So round start, jump peek, clear the off angle. If I don't clear it properly, I'll clear this. I'll walk up here on this close wall so I don't overexpose. Some people like to walk up on the back wall and now they're walking diagonally into the wall and exposing to too many angles at the same time. So that's not good. So I like to walk up a little bit close on this wall, kind of in the middle, but a little bit favored on the left wall. And now I'll get close and start doing dedicated peeks. Maybe I'll start jiggling a little bit. Maybe I'll jump peek, depends. But if I'm doing it silent, I'll do like dedicated peeks like this. I'll go back and forth, pre-aim, you know, go for good fights, go out, whatever. And then now that I'm up, I'll shift walk. Whoops, I shot. I'll shift walk up a little bit and I'll kind of just like edge myself out. But at this point, you might as well just go for the execute if you're this close, you know. How do you know when to wide peek? After like, you can, I mean, you know when to wide peek if you feel like the duel is unfavorable is the best way I can explain it, right? Like if I'm close to the wall right here, this peek fucking feels terrible, right? If I'm close to the wall, I could just back up and then go for the peek, which can give you a better dedicated peek, of course. Or you could just go for the crouch peek, which is the nice dedicated peek without having to back up. Or you just go for the wide swing, right? So it's not that it's the best peek in the scenario, but it's just one of the tools. Because if you're a close wall and you were to peek like this, you're just gonna die. So you can either go for the crouch peek to throw off crosshair placement. You could back up to give a better dedicated peek where your pre-aim is better. or you can go for the wide swing because swinging close is just death. So the wide swing can dodge bullets, I guess.